I'm going to start this video off by saying it exactly how it is. Up until this point, the Drivers' Championship battle this season has been, well, it's been pretty bland, really. Watching McLaren keep both their drivers on a really short lead all season has taken all of the bite out of what is meant to be motorsports' greatest competition. The Papaya Rules have denied us the elbows out, no punches pulled championship brawl that, as fans, we're all kind of expecting. Now though, those very same rules and how McLaren have chose to implement them over the course of the season and at the Singapore Grand Prix is going to come back and bite them. Finally, after months of waiting for Piastri and Norris to stop being friends and start being proper title rivals, we're finally going to see what happens when the shackles are off. The 2025 F1 season is just about to start, and it is going to be a mental 6 races. So let's check it out. So, as an avid F1 fan, I'm sure that you've probably noticed that things at the McLaren team seem slightly odd this season. And no, I'm not talking about the fact that they're not fighting Alpine for 4th place as they have done for, well, as long as anyone can really remember. What I mean is that despite having 2 of the best drivers in the sport at the moment, in the fastest car on the grid, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have appeared to be best of buddies. Now, while that has been lovely for McLaren, who've been able to charge their way to the Constructors' Championship title without any real problems, for us as fans, it isn't really what we want to see. It doesn't take too long a memory to remember the days of Hamilton and Rosberg or Vettel and Webber. There aren't going to be many of you guys watching this right now who got a chance to watch Senna versus Prost live when it was happening, but I bet most of you know at least some of the story of the incredible rivalry at McLaren which almost tore the team apart. You see, to be an F1 driver, you have to be one of the most driven and competitive people on the planet, and that generally means that when 2 drivers are fighting for wins while on the same team, that competitiveness spills over off the track and into the garage. What McLaren has done in keeping that competitiveness contained has been absolutely incredible, and they deserve so much credit for making it happen. How they've achieved it is with what they call the Papaya Rules. Now, whether you think these are the most genius idea in the history of Formula 1 or a load of crap, which is sucking the soul out of the sport, you can't argue that they've been effective. So how do the Papaya Rules work? Well, they're pretty simple, and we know what they are because the team has told us. Zach Brown said in September last year, Papaya Rules are it's your teammate, race him hard, race him clean, don't touch. Earlier this season, Piastri explained it's literally one rule, which is don't crash into each other. I'm sure you can guess what the important part of both those statements is. So, this is hardly a revolutionary concept, but how they've applied that rule both on and off the track has worked, and that's what's made it different from other teams that have tried to do it in the past. Both of the drivers know that at the end of the day they drive for McLaren, and that's not just McLaren the brand, it's not just Zach Brown, it's the 1,000+ members of staff that behind them that make the team work. They aren't just driving for themselves, they have a responsibility to all those people to get the team a result. This stance for McLaren has worked out great. The 2 have worked together really well to win the Constructors' Championship with 6 races remaining, rewarding all the hard work of the wider team, which is what they rightfully deserve. However, by managing the team that way and setting the drivers that goal, they've also taken a lot of the fight out of the Drivers' Championship. Norris and Piastri have constantly been reminded that they have to race by these rules, and the fear of breaching those rules has held both drivers back at times. This was evidenced from the very first race of this season, where the team told Piastri to not fight Norris for the lead of the Australian Grand Prix, with the track conditions being very difficult. McLaren wanted to prioritise the team taking the maximum points possible, which at the time was a 1-2 finish, and you know what? That was fair enough. It was pretty terrible conditions, and the 2 ending each other's race would have been a very bad look on week 1 of the season. And of course, at the time, they would have had no idea how down to the wire the Drivers' Championship might come. However, by holding Piastri back in that race from Norris, McLaren extended the scope of the Papaya Rules, and it went further than don't crash into your teammate. It wasn't about the team trusting Oscar not to crash into his teammate. Oscar straight up wasn't allowed to race his teammate, which McLaren have claimed that their drivers are always allowed to do. Now, this extending of the scope of the Papaya Rules came up again in Monza, where Piastri had to give back that position to Norris after his teammate had a slow pit stop. Now, before I get sidetracked with anything, the anger of Oscar's fans and whether their belief that McLaren are favouring Norris is true or not is a subject for an entire another video. While I don't necessarily agree with some of their points, I can see why they might think that McLaren might be biased. But anyway, I could talk about that for hours, and I'm not here to do that, so let's just park that for another day and maybe we can have a chat in the comments about it. So McLaren have been racing all season by these Papaya Rules, which have slowly had their scope extended with the goal of winning the Constructors' Championship. An F1 team is about all of its staff members, not just its drivers, and the drivers putting personal gain ahead of all the people they represent is something that's absolutely not on in the eyes of the McLaren team. That's fine. If anything, it's noble and it's how every team should race. But now, there's nothing left for the team to win. Those staff members have got their prize. The Constructors' Championship trophy will sit at McLaren HQ for next season, bonuses will be paid out, and the Christmas party will be an absolute banger, so everyone's happy. So what purpose do the Papaya Rules now serve? Obviously, McLaren would still prefer it if their drivers didn't crash into each other, but the consequences are no longer as serious. There isn't a championship at risk anymore. So this brings me up to Singapore, and what happened there completely changed the game. Whether you follow the belief that McLaren apply the Papaya Rules differently to each driver or not, it's hard to argue that Norris getting away without any kind of reprimand or a request to hand the position back to Oscar after making contact to pass his teammate on lap 1 is going to change how each driver races. In Norris's case, he's now broken the rules and got away with them. The Papaya Rules very simply state that the drivers aren't to make contact. He made contact with Piastri, he took the position, and then drove away without the team batting an eyelid. He even said after the race, "If you fault me for just going on the inside of a big gap, then you should not be in Formula 1. There was nothing wrong with what I did." The team's argument at the time to Piastri was that Lando had to make contact with him to avoid Verstappen, and to be fair to Piastri, he was very rightly disgusted by that argument, which frankly is ridiculous. So Norris has broken the rules. McLaren haven't done anything about it. So is he really going to be worried about banging wheels at future races? Absolutely not. And the same applies to Piastri as well. As long as neither driver is actively taking out each other in the race Michael Schumacher style and costing the team money through repairs, then McLaren have opened the door to allow these two to race each other harder than they ever have before. So what is there to look forward to for the rest of this season? Well, an absolute stack. But before I talk about that, this is a point in the video where I ask you to go down below, press the like button, subscribe to F1 Reverse, so if you can go and do that now, that'd be great. Thanks. United States, Mexico, Sao Paulo, Las Vegas, Qatar, and then Abu Dhabi. 6 races separate us from the end of the 2025 F1 season. 6 races to decide the Drivers' Championship. 22 points separate Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. It isn't quite 2021 levels of tension when Verstappen and Hamilton were separated by 6 points with 6 races to go, but it isn't far off. Over those 6 races, we also have 3 sprints to be contested. That's a total of 9 race sessions where Piastri and Norris are going to be going head to head. The reins are going to be off. The burden of the Constructors' Championship has been removed, and the racing is now allowed. These races, no matter what track they were at, would be absolutely unmissable. But what makes it even better is that these are some of the best tracks for overtaking on the calendar. Las Vegas topped the overtakes charts again last season with a total of 60. Sao Paulo and Mexico City both broke 40 as well. They're all in the upper end of the overtakes chart, and that means plenty of chances for Oscar and Lando to end up wheel-to-wheel racing. On top of that, Andrea Stella has now admitted that the team are going to struggle to control their drivers in the same way they have all season, because of how they handled the collision between the two in Singapore. When you're racing as a team, you cannot have exactly the same interests for the two drivers because they want to pursue their aspirations, he said. We want to protect this let them race concept, and we know as soon as you adopt this concept, you face difficulties. As Stella says, trying to make these two race for the Drivers' Championship and also stick to the Papaya Rules is going to cause the team difficulties. Actually, I'd probably go as far as saying that it's just going to be completely impossible. I haven't been this excited to watch Formula 1 since the back end of the 2021 season, and honestly, you should be too. I've been George, you've been watching F1 Reverse, and if you disagree with me, please don't at me in the comments.